What is up, everybody? My name is HRHSL. Welcome back to the channel. Today is a brand new video for 25 Days of Harry, and today we are going to be taking a look at the history of the HRHSL. This is technically 3.0. This is the 3.0 version I'm doing this. I've done it for the past 2 years, I believe, so yeah, if this is not and this is just the 2.0, then I apologize, and I will name it such in the title, but I'm pretty sure this is the third time I'm doing a history for the HRHSL. So yeah, so where we left off, you guys can go watch the last two videos if you haven't yet, if you want a catch up on all that's been going on. But basically, in very, very short terms, Chicago Dynasty, Montreal Dynasty, Chicago, Philadelphia, San Jose, and Florida have all won Stanley Cups. I might be forgetting one in there. I apologize if I have, but Washington. Washington's also won a Stanley Cup. They were the first ever Cup champions. I should probably remember this. And yeah. So, we're just going to get right into it. I actually have notes, surprisingly. My memory has been kind of faulty throughout the whole year. It's been such a back and forth kind of year that there's been certain months where the league has actually been a big focus for me. There's been others where it's kind of not, surprisingly. So, yeah, the 17-18 season was supposed to be the one that starts the year. It was the year after Chicago had just won their second Stanley Cup in league history. By the way, yes, I am repping my Pittsburgh Penguins. Mario Lemieux captain jersey in honor of the late great Suns. He's not dead, but just Penguins. So yeah, the 17-18 season was supposed to start. I was actually starting work. This isn't the controller I was using, but I was actually supposed to be getting work on. I was getting work done on the PS4. I was doing rosters, doing growth on the actual on the game, and then all of a sudden the PS4 just stops working one day. So I completely turned it off. I didn't just, put it into rest mode. I completely turned it off one day. And I come back the next day. I try to turn it on. And it doesn't turn on. It'll technically start to turn on. It'll go beep. And then it beep, beep, beep. And it'll turn off. Actually, no, sorry. That was not what was going on. What was going on was it completely it would not... It gave me that error message of the PS4 was turned off incorrectly. Please wait while we restore data or whatever. So basically, it did that, and then it said, "Oh, PS4, something like PS4 cannot find your data or whatever, something like that." And so I was like, "Okay, let me leave it for a few days. Maybe that'll help it." It didn't. Spoiler alert. But it didn't help. So I started looking up guides. I called PlayStation support. They were actually very helpful. The dude who helped me out, big props to him. I forget his name, unfortunately. Big props to him. He was pretty cool. He actually told me to go onto the PlayStation site, download the newest update, and install it. So I installed it. Or I went to install it, and I had to format the drive. Which, for those who don't know what that means, I had to lose all my save data. I had to lose all my progress, all 3 of the games that we had done on the PS4, 16, 17, and 18. All my work on 18 at that point, but all the work we had done for 16 and 17 was going to be lost. All the work that I had done for 18, so I couldn't even go back on 16 and 17 now and look at, I'm touching as if the PS4 that's here is the one that is the same PS4. It's not, don't worry. But like I said, I can't even go back and look at, like, say, oh, who led the league in penalty minutes? I mean, I thought it doesn't matter. Who led the league in hits or fights? I can't even go back and look at that now. So I had to format the drive, installed the update, and it works. So I'm like, okay, I start playing, I think it was 2K18? Why does that not sound right? No. I started playing 2K22 because I just bought in 2K22. It was like $20, and I was like, hey, I'm not gonna get a deal that's good. This is a little bit of a story before really getting into the history. I figured I just want to explain this, and There's a reason this video is about to be 45 fucking minutes long. But I was playing some 2K22 because I was like, okay, I want to play this. I'll take a few days to get the league back and going. It's been dead for like 2 weeks anyways. They can last another couple days without me getting work started. Because I knew it's been so long since I had done growth and all that I'd really get in a kick and I'd get it done pretty quickly. But did play 2K22, played through the 2K Showcase mode. And then, after about 2-3 days, randomly, this actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because firstly, I really like 2K Showcase mode, so I don't mind going back and playing through it again. But secondly, because I hadn't gotten the growth started, so it wasn't just wasted work again, basically. PS4 turned on and it gave me the same error. It gave me something like PS4 could not find your save data. It was whatever it was before. I actually forget at this point because I have the new PS4. Spoilers for later. But it would give me that error. I'd have to plug in the USB, install the update, reformat the drive all over again, put my profile back on, blah blah blah, all that, and I'd start all over. And that happened 2 or 3 times within a week. So I was like, okay, I can't do the league. What do I do? And very quickly I came to the decision of, okay, we're not just going to pause the league. We're not just going to stop until I can get a PS4, because who knows how long that's going to be. It might be 6 months, it might be a year. I might never get another PS4, you know. It's not necessarily, I might never get it, just, I might not, you know. I might get an Xbox One instead. That actually was the plan. If you can see right here, that's NHL 17 and 18 for the Xbox One. I bought those with the anticipation of the league going to Xbox, of me getting an Xbox One, because that's what I did want for a while. Everybody that I know that's in the league is on an Xbox, and I figured, why not, I'll get that. Spoiler, I didn't. But yeah, so the PlayStation 4 broke. I quickly figured out, why not HRHSL 2.0. And it was a random announcement. This is actually how I think I formally announced to the league that my PS4 had stopped working and whatnot. And it was a video. I had an Oasis song in there. I had all of the logos for the team. I had the logos reverted. It was a really cool video. I'll see if I'm able to post it on the HRHSL archives channel, which, by the way, link for that will be in the description no matter what. Editing Harry. Remember, put the link in the description. Yeah, I do this sometimes where I call on Editing Harry to do something, and yeah. But, yeah, Editing Harry. Don't forget the HRHSL archives link. If I did forget it, if this is premiering or whatever, if it's not in the description, someone yell at me in the comments. Tell Editing Harry to put the tell Uploading Harry to put the link there if it's not there, please and thank you. But I'll see if I can get it on the archives channel. By the way, the archives channel is another thing that happened this year. Like 3 months ago, I decided to put up all of the playoff hype videos that I had, and I have them on the HRHSL archives channel. You can view all of them there. I've actually created one since the channel started, so that's like the only bit of, I think, created content. That and the 2012 playoff anthem. Those are the only 2 things that I have not put on the archives channel yet, which I should probably do that soon. But yeah, we decided to go to HRHSL 2.0, and now it was just a matter of, for me at first, it was a matter of, okay, where do I want to go? Because actually the video was not how I announced the league. I remember now. It's all coming back to me now. Shout out Celine Dion. What had happened was I decided to run a poll, asking the people in HRHSL 1.0, hey, if we were to do a new league, what would you guys want? Like, what game? What changes from 1.0? Like, stuff like that. And the unanimous answer was NHL 04. NHL 2004 was the unanimous, what game do we want to go to? And I'm actually lucky that was the game, because season mode allows you to pick any team you want. There's create a team, obviously create a player, even though it's actually very limited. I think there's only 50 spots available in that game, something really surprising like that. Thankfully, 04 also allows you to edit pre-created, also allows you to edit guys that are already in the game, so we were good on that front too. And then weirdly enough, 05 actually doesn't let you, it doesn't have create a team, create a player, season mode, so we would have been fucked regardless. And we just ended up having 2 seasons on NHL 06. We'll talk about that more later. But yeah, so I, based off that poll, decided to create HRHSL 2.0. Now, where we were going to start, I didn't want to start after the draft. I didn't want to just, oh, hey, base rosters, boom, you got free agency, let's go. We're doing, like, sim right now. We started at the 03 draft. And so now what I had to do was I had to go in and find everybody that was going to be in the 03 draft. And another reason I wanted to start at the 03 draft, it's the greatest draft class in NHL history. I think 15 is going to be up there. But 03 is easily, right now, the greatest draft class in NHL history. And also with the rule that I have for HRHSL 1.0 that I took over with 2.0, that the league, that when you're drafted, it doesn't go off of when you turn 18, like, oh, if you're 18 before a certain date or whatever. No, it's off the year you would become 18, regardless if you're 17 when the start of the season happens or not. And that means Alex Ovechkin is in the 2003 NHL draft. That is right. Alex Ovechkin is in that draft, which stacks it up even more. And funny enough, despite how stacked that draft is, Ovechkin immediately becomes the consensus number 1 overall pick. And the Florida Panthers, who never pull off that trade with the Penguins, because I used pre-draft selections, like the picks where they would be. Pittsburgh and Florida never swap picks 1 and 3. So the Florida Panthers draft Alexander Ovechkin first overall. Ironically, like they tried to do in real life. I think it was like 5 straight picks they tried to pick him and use the leap year argument. They actually do get him in this league. And yeah, so Nashville is completely horrible in 2003. I believe they really, really did not play well whatsoever. They did not have, I think, more than 15 wins. I'm sorry, I gotta look up the standings right now. Yeah, no, they did not have more than 10 wins. They had a record of 7-68, 4-3. So they finished with less wins than the 1971-72 Washington Capitals. Yeah, it got that bad for Nashville. However, they still beat Colorado and Detroit. Colorado, who had a completely stacked up roster. Of course, Solani, Sakic, Forsberg, they had Tongue. I don't believe they had Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh had just retired. They had Rob Blake. They had acquired a shit ton of good players as well. They went $60 million over the salary cap for that. Well, not $60 million over the salary cap because there was no salary cap in 03-04. But they had like $120 million payroll. The Colorado people were not happy with their GM, TBC, who ironically also ruined the Colorado Avalanche as a result of this. But Nashville beats Colorado and Detroit. Red Wings need no introduction. But in the process of that season and over the next several years that the 2.0 would be around, they also create what is known as the Nashville Four. That is David Moss, Joey Crabb, Bob Wren, and Chris Dingman. These are the 4 players that looked the best in the 03-04 season, the disaster year, as it's now known. Ironically, also the cupless year to some fans in Nashville. But they created the Nashville Four. Those 4 have been inseparable. Those 4 have been together in Nashville. They usually play all with each other on the power play. I believe they create 2 lines total. So Nashville is a very solid top 6 creation with the Nashville Four. And yeah, so Nashville just completely peters out. Colorado has a completely stacked roster. However, they go out in the first round. That is right. They are massively upset by the Chicago Blackhawks. So this is a Blackhawks team that kind of snuck their way into the playoffs. They were a 7th seed. They had 39 wins. They didn't even hit 40 wins. They had a 39-28, 12-3 record. They still ironically had a massive jump on the Oilers, who finished with a 35-11-1 record. And yet the Oilers ironically were out in 5. They actually took game 1 against the Stars. They actually were gentlemanly swept from the playoffs. So yeah, Colorado massively stacked roster and in a huge upset out in the first round to the Chicago Blackhawks. And yeah, at that point, they knew they were in trouble, and they would be for the foreseeable future. They would be. Dallas wins the President's Trophy. As I mentioned, they beat Edmonton in the first round. They then get swept by Detroit in the conference finals, who, of course, then makes it to the Stanley Cup finals against the Washington Capitals, led by the real BK. And Washington is the underdog. Despite being the number 1 seed in the East, Detroit is just Detroit, and they're seen as, hey, they should easily win this cup final. Washington wins it in what is considered a pretty big upset. They win it in 5. Mario Lemieux, who they had signed, who they had traded for with Pittsburgh GM Mad Mike, was trying to rebuild. He was trying to tank, which meant Lemieux was out. Washington acquired him. Lemieux, with the game-winning goal, he had a great resurgence in Washington, and he helps the Capitals take out the Detroit Red Wings. This is a Washington team who had Mario Lemieux, already Jaromir Jagr. I believe they traded for Brett Hall. A great team there, and they actually do end up winning the Stanley Cup. Jerome McKinley with the Calgary Flames had a 76-goal season. That is right, a 76-goal season, nearly goal per game. Gaborik had 67 goals with the Minnesota Wild, so a team that was just under 500 almost sneaks into the playoffs. You could argue almost entirely because of Marian Gaborik. Jaromir Jagr as well, who wore this jersey for a long time, led the league actually with 131 points. Gaborik had 124. All 10 of the point leaders for the National Hockey League had 108 plus points. So the league is purely focused on offense in the 03-04 season. Then I believe this is where we have the controller in milk incident is right at the draft. So what had happened was I was playing, I think NHL 04, it might have been 05 or 06, but I was playing one of the games, it wasn't this controller obviously, but it was my 360 controller, just playing, blah, 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 whatever, and then I put it down, and what I happened to have a bowl of milk, and this sounds really fucking weird, because it is, but I had a bowl of milk from cereal. I didn't bring it upstairs because I had finished it like 10 minutes earlier. I'll bring it up in a minute, whatever. Playing the game or whatever, and I put my controller down. But when at the angle I put it down, the table was here. I put it down like this, or something like this, and it just fucking glided off, and somehow landed directly in the fucking bowl. I have no clue, but it did. Somehow, I don't know how. But the edge of the bowl caught one of the sticks, and it became like, you know, that stick shift you kind of get where it'll just stick around the edges, and you move it here and it just goes back here, for example. That happened. I lost the fucking R2 button somehow. Yeah, the controller was fucked, and I told people I did not have an extra controller. I know people are going to be looking at this PS3 controller back here and some of these Xbox controllers and thinking, Harry, the fuck? You have controllers. The PS3 controller is actually one that I lent my nephew because the charger is fucked up on it and he doesn't play games with it anyways. He just takes it, runs around the house. It's adorable. This one down, I'm trying to get the angle right. This one here, these two, the one on the edges here, these are 360 controllers that are wired, and they don't work. I keep them because the silver one is fucking cool, and this one because, why not? I feel like it. This is an Xbox controller, original Xbox. This is an original Xbox. Right here, you can't really see it because of the stand. And behind the books, that's the controller I'm using. I had another one. That one fucking broke. Yeah, yeah, that sucks. The one I'm using, by the way, is a wired controller. And technically, I could use PS4 controllers. Now I can, because I have a fucking long-ass wirely boy. But at the time, I couldn't, because I had a really short wire, and it would have been really uncomfortable for me to use. So, yeah. A controller and milk incident. And now, shout out to, at the time, Minnesota Wild GM, Katarina Fox. Shout out to her. I don't know where she is. I don't know if she still watches the videos or whatnot, but shout out to her. She sends $100 for me to get a new controller. I asked her if she wanted me to give the remainder back, and she said no, just take the rest of it. You can just buy whatever you want. So I bought a 2-pack of 360 controllers, and then I believe I bought some DVDs, I think. I forget actually what I bought. I think it was a couple DVDs though. And yeah, so yeah, the controllers actually cost, I want to say $30 with the shipping, I think, because I bought them off of eBay, and it was like, oh, it'll come in the next 3 days. I was like, okay, I'll take 3 days over waiting 2 weeks. So, yeah, it costs a little bit more than usual. So, yeah. Actually, no. Sorry. I did not buy just DVDs. I bought the new webcam with it, too. I've been looking at this fucking thing for 20 minutes and talking about the story now, and I completely forgot I bought the fucking webcam, because this was also like $30-$40. So yeah, I bought the 360 controllers, I bought the webcam, and I bought like 4 DVDs off of eBay with the money. So yeah, very good webcam as well. I actually have to thank Kat for that as well. Thank you very much, Kat. Technically, I've not bought a webcam on my own. The first HD one that we got, which is actually right here, it's right next to it, that was sent to me by a viewer. This one was technically sent to me by a viewer. A viewer paid for it, I should say. A viewer paid for this. Yeah, it's funny. I've gone from 720 to 1080. Next up, I gotta get a 4K camera. God, those are fucking expensive, probably. So yeah, League quickly came back. We almost had to go to a different sports sim league, or just me trying to get the PC version of like NHL 06. So yeah, in the 04 draft, I'm gonna try and speed this up because we're already 21 minutes in. We're not even through a full season yet. Nashville drafts Malkin first overall, Radulov and Wheeler at 5th and 6th, Victor Stolberg 20th overall, Tyler Bozak 22nd, Blake Como 26th, and Derek Dorsett 28th overall. So by selling off everybody, they get 7 first-round picks. They get 3 quality top-line forwards, and then some third-line options, and Derek Dorsett, a fourth-line enforcer. Building what looks like they could have a very good forward core, especially with the Nashville 4, looking like a damn good team, and they would be within a couple years. So the 04 draft, very kind to the Nashville Predators, not even including how many second and third rounders they had in that year, by the way, which I don't even remember. The 04 NHL lockout, everybody at the Washington Cup parade kind of sensed it. There's going to be a lockout. It did not happen. The NHLPA and NHL talked. They were talking throughout the end of the season, through some of the playoffs, and they came to an agreement at the 11th hour, literally just 11 hours before free agency was expected to start. They come out with an announcement. The NHL and the NHLPA have agreed on a collective bargaining agreement that includes getting rid of the ties. They would have the overtime and shootouts. They would have a salary cap, which was the main thing the NHL wanted to prevent its GMs from abusing it, like the Colorado GM has. And yeah, it would happen, and some players were not happy with it. Notably, I believe Brendan Morrison of the Vancouver Canucks was not at all happy about the salary cap being implemented. He threatened to walk out of the 04-05 season and not play. He would not. And yeah, so we would have an 04-05 NHL season in which Montreal completely bottoms out from the year before. They made the playoffs, I believe, the year before. If not, they got pretty close to it. No, they sort of got close, 32, 36, 10, and 4. However, the year after, again, it just completely falls apart. They finished with a record of 14, 58, and 10, 38 points, easily the worst in the National Hockey League, the worst record in the NHL that year. Montreal sold off everything. They sold off Saku Koivu. They bought out Saku Koivu, actually, I believe. Very unpopular move with the Montreal fan base. Richard Zednik they traded away. They traded Andrei Markov. They traded away everything they could to be bad. And Colorado, speaking of, because they went over the cap as much as they did, they were stripped, and I'm going to try and look real quick, by the way. They were stripped, I know, of a couple things. just a couple. They were stripped of approximately their 2005 first, 2005 second, 2006 and 2007 first round picks. They were stripped of the 2007 third and a 2008 second, along with the 2007 second. I don't think I mentioned that. And the rights to the following players: Adam Oates, Pierre Turgeon, Doug Gilmour, Bobby Holik, Doug Waite, Alex Tongue, Joe Sakic, and Peter Forsberg. So they still had Timu Solane and Wojtek Wolski. they lost players that cost them a lot of cap. Now, at this point, Adam Oates, Pierre Turgeon, Doug Gilmour, Bobby Holly, if anything, that's actually doing them a favor because those guys were in the AHL. They weren't great players. Tanguy, Sakic, and Forsberg hurt massively, though, of course, obviously, as I think anybody losing a player of Sakic and Forsberg's caliber would go. So, Colorado, by the way, now went from being one of the best teams in the NHL, third best record in the league last year, to 32, 40, and 10, 8 games under NHL 500, completely out of the playoffs. The Islanders, out of nowhere, with a 57-win President's Trophy season, the Islanders built a very good core around Alexei Ashen and Rick DiPietro, Adrian Aucoin, Roman Hamrlik on the blue line. Very, very good team, and out of nowhere again with a very surprising President's Trophy appearance. Tampa Bay and Columbus, also a bit of a story. Both have 49-win seasons. They'd come into the league just over a decade. Within a decade, Tampa came in I believe 92. So 13 years later, they're a 50-win season. The Blue Jackets come in 2000. So within 5 years, building around, of course, Rick Nash and I believe Jeff Sanderson, they had a 49-win season in just their 5th year in the league's existence, or their existence, I should say. And the Blue Jackets, out of nowhere, making a surprise Stanley Cup Finals run. They take out the 5th seed LA Kings in 7 games after being down 3-1 in that series. In the second round, they took out the Minnesota Wild. Rick Nash had a hat trick, game-winning goal in overtime to eliminate the Wild in their building. And in the conference finals, took out the 7th seed Dallas Stars. So there's a lot of talk that the Blue Jackets, they took out the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th seed. That was the year in the West, by the way. Every lower seed won. Except the Vancouver Canucks. They beat the Blues. The Stars beat the Red Wings. The Wild beat the Sharks. And the Blue Jackets beat the Kings. The Canucks then lost to the Stars. They got swept. They were swept by the Stars. That was a massive upset. And the Blue Jackets, for the first time, they faced an actual team in the New York Islanders, a President's Trophy winning team. They were expected to get destroyed in 4 games, 5 games. Everybody expected them to lose. Columbus wins. They defeat the President's Trophy winning New York Islanders in 5 games to win their first ever Stanley Cup. They win it on Long Island. They win in overtime, Game 1 and Game 5. They win 3 of their 4 games, 4-3, so they proved that they could outscore the New York Islanders. The Islanders actually scored 4 goals 3 times in that finals. They won Game 2, 3-0. Yeah. And now this is the big story. So 3 Atlanta Thrashers lead the National Hockey League in points. Sergei Fedorov with 155 points. Danny Heatley has 143. Kovalchuk has 133 points. All 10-point leaders had 108-plus points once again. However, unlike last year, it was not 3 guys with 108 and then 113 and whatever. It was 108, 113, it was quickly increasing. Bill Guerin of the Detroit Red Wings had a 75-goal season, so 76 goal the year before, 75 goal this year. Fedorov had 74 goals. The Atlanta Thrashers missed the playoffs by technically 0 points, but by a point. It was the last day of the regular season. It was the last day, and the New York Islanders faced the Philadelphia Flyers. It was the Thrashers and the Flyers, and the Islanders playing the Flyers would determine who played them in the first round. It was either going to be the Flyers or the Thrashers. If the Flyers win, it's Islanders and Flyers. If the Islanders win, it's Islanders and Thrashers. So naturally, the Islanders pull their goalie in the third period. However, they cannot stop scoring either. This game ends up going to a shootout tied 7-7. This game was, I believe, 5-4 for the Islanders. The Flyers pulled the goalie. The Islanders pulled their goalie because the Flyers knew, hey, we pulled the goalie as well. fucking, we're not just winning this thing straight out. We want to win it naturally. Jeremy Roenick would have a hat trick as a result. And like I said, 5 combined empty net goals. The game was tied 7-7 in the shootout. Eric Goddard scores for the Islanders, but the Flyers do win in the shootout. Right when it looked like the Islanders were going to win, and it looked like there was a possibility it was going to be Islanders and Thrashers, the Flyers do end up winning. They face the Islanders in the first round and end up losing in 4 straight games. Yeah, Owen Nolan also had 62 goals, by the way. Matthew Barnaby has back-to-back penalty minute leading seasons. He led last year with 384, this year with 441. So Matthew Barnaby with a big-time mean streak to him. The Pens, by the way, went up big time this year. Jesse Belarus was second in the league with 407. Donald Brashear had 394. Chris Dingman, part of the Nashville 4, had 367. I believe to go with a 70-point season that he had this year. And the Phoenix Coyotes would end up getting the first overall pick. Now you might be wondering, Harry, despite the draft lottery, you didn't mention anything about Phoenix. Well, that's right, because they would end up trading with the Anaheim Mighty Ducks to acquire the first overall pick. And I'm trying to find it real quick. This is the 2007 draft. I'm looking back in the server right now. I didn't think to get the actual trade down. I didn't think this is how I was going to be doing things. But like I said, the Anaheim Ducks and the Phoenix Coyotes will end up making a massive deal at the 2005 draft. What would the trade be, you might ask? What it ends up being is Mark Recchi and first overall. Mark Recchi, who had a terrible contract. The Ducks wanted to get rid of him. They exclusively made it known that they would only trade first overall if they could attach Mark Recchi with it. So a little bit of smart asset management for first time for someone like Hines. But what would the Ducks get back in return? Brent Burns, Milan McCulloch, Nico Tashlios, 5th overall, and a 2007 first-round pick. So, in exchange for the Phoenix Coyotes being able to draft Sidney Crosby, the Anaheim Ducks basically get a guy who would end up playing 2 years in the minors. He would not develop for the Anaheim Ducks. A guy who I believe would be a third liner. A guy who would not end up panning out for the Anaheim Ducks. And who else? Who would the Anaheim Ducks draft at 5th overall? Who would they pick at 5th overall to combat Sidney Crosby? Well, matter of fact, they would end up trading that pick too. That's right. They ended up trading 5th overall. They dealt that to the Florida Panthers for Greg Campbell, a 2005 third, and 9th overall, which they would then use to pick Bobby Ryan. So they go from Sidney Crosby to potentially having Nick Backstrom to Bobby Ryan. Yeah, people wonder why the Anaheim Ducks were not good. This is also the same draft where they end up trading away the rights to Jonathan Quick for a first and a third round pick. So, yeah, the GM clearly did not know what he was doing at the time, nor did he have any clue what he would do at all during his tenures as GMs. Pittsburgh would grab Chris Letang, and Montreal would draft Carey Price just like in real life. 3rd and 4th overall, those guys going respectively. In the 2005-2006 season, what in real life was the actual coming off of the lockout season. However, this year is just another season. The LA Kings won the President's Trophy with a 58-20-4 record. They won the NHL with 20 wins. That was really lockout shortened season. Detroit was right behind them with 53 wins, and the Blue Jackets behind them with a 49-win season. Yet again, we've seen what they can do with 49-win seasons, or a 49-win season. So the 3 best teams in the league, all coming from the Western Conference. Florida winning the East with a 45-22-15 record. The Penguins behind them, the Senators as well, both with 49 wins. However, the extra overtime and shootout loss point really helps the Florida Panthers. The St. Louis Blues had also retracted from the NHL. It was known they were big time losing money, and they retract. The Saskatoon Steel come in with a very last minute expansion draft. They end up picking, I'm trying to find where they picked a lot of their most notable players. that they had picked. From the Boston Bruins, Andre Mazzaros. From the Red Wings, Alex Burrows. The Edmonton Oilers, Ray Emery. From the Nashville Predators, Phil Housley, 43-year-old Phil Housley. They picked Stefan Robidoux from the Montreal Canadiens. Arturi Niittymaki from the Philadelphia Flyers. Carlo Koliakovo from the Toronto Maple Leafs. They picked some decent names here. I'm trying to see if there's any I'm forgetting. Craig Conroy from the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres. The Saskatoon Steel with their general manager Sporty. Finishing, by the way, with I believe at the time, record, which I believe now a record for the NHL, 42-30-10 record. So they finished with a way above 500 record, 94 points. They finish in the playoffs. Anaheim, by the way, completely sucks after giving away Sidney Crosby. 52-10 record. They just completely bottomed out. They traded everything. They did not feel like they were going to win a Stanley Cup. Montreal and Jersey were right behind them, by the way, with identical 29-44-9 records. New Jersey did have the edge. I don't know how the NHL determined that. I believe it was by goals for. Martin Brodeur looking nothing like how he was just 5 years prior. He was a shell of his former self, especially with no offense in front of him. So he was letting up 5, 6, 7 goals a game. Marty Brodeur was not looking good at all. And the LA Kings, as the first seed in the East, they choke. They win. Sorry. They take game 1 against the Stars, and then it's a gentleman's sweep. That's right. They lose 4 straight games. They lose in 5 to the Red Wings. They lose in 5 to the Dallas Stars. The Red Wings, meanwhile, they lose in 7 to the Saskatoon Steel. A massive upset. Everybody expected the Red Wings to sweep the Saskatoon Steel. They were actually down in the series 2-0. They came back to win 3 straight. The Steel won Game 6 at home and then took out the Wings 5-2 in Game 7. The Red Wings just massively upset in that year. And the Blue Jackets, surprisingly, go back-to-back as Cup champions. They were actually the 4th seed in the West, because the Wild led their division. This is during the time where the division leaders all get the top 3 seeds. So the Blue Jackets actually would end up leading the Flames 3-0 in the series after winning 2 games in overtime. Flames came back to force a Game 7, but the Blue Jackets unfortunately took Game 7 in OT. They then took out the Stars in 7 games after leading 3-1 and the Stars forcing a Game 7. In the Western Conference Finals, they took out the Saskatoon Steel, unfortunately, in 7, winning 2 of their games, Game 5 and Game 7, 3-2, to force the 3-2 series lead and to win Game 7. The Saskatoon Steel showing a lot of fight, just unfortunately was not their year. And in the Cup Finals, going down 2-1 and 3-2 would not bother them, as they won Game 7, 8-4, and win the Cup 4-3. And in case you didn't notice, they played the maximum amount of games required to win the Stanley Cup. All their series went to 7 games. That is an NHL first, that a team has played 28 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs and win the Stanley Cup. The first time it's ever happened to play 28 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And a massive downgrade in point totals. By the way, I'm trying to find this here, by the way. Alexander Ovechkin for the Florida Panthers led the league with 111 points, 67 goals, also leading the league. Ilya Kovalchuk, Danny Heatley, Sergei Fedorov, next up, 2, 3, and 4 in the point totals with 109, 105, 104 points. So we went from 155 point seasons to 111. Massive downgrade for the overall league. In the draft, meanwhile, Buffalo would draft Patrick Kane first overall. Columbus, out of a Stanley Cup back-to-back, trades for second overall. Surprisingly, I don't think anyone expected Columbus to all of a sudden make a late claim, if you will, a late stake claim for second overall. But what the trade would end up being, I'm trying to find it, I apologize. I'm trying to find it really quickly. I really apologize, boys. Oh god. Oh, okay, there we go. Sorry. I was trying to make sure that my mic was still working. And Yes, it is. It mutes, and yeah. I'm doing this one take, by the way. I'm not editing any of this motherfucking shit out. So yeah, they would end up trading, like I said, for second overall with the Vancouver Canucks. What the trade would end up being was to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They actually had made this trade at the deadline. They traded for Ed Jovanovski and Jason King with that 2006 first, and give the Vancouver Canucks Jeff Sanderson and Jean-Luc Grandpierre. The Canucks would also then buy Todd Bertuzzi from the San Jose Sharks for a first, third, and second round pick. So yeah, teams showing that they don't know how to trade with actual teams instead of trying to fleece the AI. Vancouver gives away second overall. The Blue Jackets draft Jonathan Toews. Montreal gets Brad Marchand and Max Pacioretty third and sixth overall. So again, they do fall in the draft lottery. Montreal does to the they do fall to the third overall pick. Buffalo and Vancouver winning the draft lottery there. Florida in 2006. What would end up happening was they win the President's Trophy, I should say, for the 06-07 season, actually, I should say. They win the President's Trophy with a 52-28-8 record. The Flames win the East with a 49-21-12 record. The Kings and Thrashers right behind the East and West, the West and East, respectively. Toronto and Philly both at the bottom of the league. Philadelphia, after making the Stanley Cup Final, completely just bottoms out. Eric Lindros, Eric Desjardins, Jeremy Roenick, it completely just bottoms out. The Maple Leafs still finish with a worse record, 25-45-12. The Flyers with a 26-46-10 record. It just completely sucks for the Philadelphia Flyers. The Maple Leafs. The Ottawa Senators, surprisingly in the first round, would upset the hell out of the all of a sudden second seed Montreal Canadiens. Out in 5. They win all 4 of their games in overtime. That's what they require. Montreal wins the only game that ends in regulation, 3-2 at home. Montreal actually would end up choking a 4-1 lead in the final 5 minutes. The Sens would win in overtime. They won 5-4, 4-3, 3-2, and 3-2. So yeah, everybody was predicting Montreal in 4. It was actually Senators in 5. Surprisingly, the Sens would then go on to choke. The Sens would then go on to choke a 3-0 series lead to the Lightning in the Eastern Conference Finals. They led 3-0, again winning 2 of their 3 games actually in overtime. The Lightning then come back like hell to win in 7. Massive choke by the Ottawa Senators, but then again, I don't think we should expect anything less from the Ottawa Senators organization. The Islanders, winning the President's Trophy 2 years earlier, now as an 8th seed, upset the hell out of the first seed Florida Panthers. The Panthers, who took both of their games, Game 1 and Game 3, 4-3 in OT. The Islanders stormed them and win in 6. The Islanders would then unfortunately get swept by the Lightning. The Harry versus Suns. This is I think the 4th time this has happened total. The Islanders scoring just 3 goals in that series. Ryan Miller with 2 shutouts. And the Tampa Bay Lightning would end up beating the Saskatoon Steel in the 07 Cup Finals. A record low 3 people watching in VC when the finals happened. John Scott scores the cup-winning goal in game number 6. The Lightning actually led 3-0. The Steel won game 4 and 5 to force game 6. However, unfortunately for them, the Lightning would shut them out. Ryan Miller with his, I believe, 3rd shutout in the playoffs that year. A very, very solid performance by the Tampa Bay Lightning to win the Stanley Cup. However, what would happen? The Stanley Cup Final is announced almost immediately. Afterwards, though, 1.0 is back. It turns out August 12th, by the way, is when the playoffs happen. What happens is the month before, I have my 21st birthday, July 8th, after my birthday, I had enough to buy a new PS4, and I had bought one. I gave my sister the money. She had bought one off Amazon. There's an HDMI flickering issue with it, surprisingly, so My sister contacted Amazon. I returned the PS4. I ended up getting one myself a couple weeks later. That one worked. And August 12th, in time, announced again immediately afterwards, 1.0 is back. And for the first time in almost 9 months, we are back to 1.0. And 44 minutes later, we're going to end. No, I'm not going to do. I mean, that would actually be exciting. Go through the history of the HRHSL 2.0 and then save the rest of the league history for later. However, we do only have like 3 seasons. I think what we'll do at this point, though, is we will quickly go over 1.0's history. And yeah, so for the 16-17 season. For the 17-18 season, my apologies. For the 17-18 season, the Washington Capitals surprisingly win the President's Trophy 58-17-7 record. The Canucks, Canadians, and Panthers all right behind them, 56, 56, and 55 wins respectively. Toronto and Jersey sucked, so go from 2.0 to 1.0, and the Leafs are still bad. A 21-52-9 record for the Leafs, 22-51-9 record for the Jersey Devils, so they cost themselves potentially a first overall pick by winning an extra game. And in the playoffs, Florida still can't beat Montreal. They lose to them in the second round. This time, at least within 7 games. It wasn't a reverse sweep either. The Panthers actually went down 2-0 and 3-2, forced Game 7. They just lost 2-1. Montreal gets upset by in the conference finals by the Capitals after leading 2-1. They lost 3 straight games in overtime, 4-3, 4-3 in double OT, and 3-2. They lost Game 4 as well after leading 3-0, so that's gotta hurt. And the Capitals then lose to the Chicago Blackhawks in 5 games. They lose Game 1 2-1, Game 2 3-0, Game 4 3-2, and Game 5 6-4. So Connor McDavid not looking like he's had a great start to his career. Losing in the Cup Finals, and he was then actually traded to the Dallas Stars for a fairly okay package. Alexander Barkov will make his way back to the Florida Panthers. Sasha Barkov would go to the Florida Panthers, and the Vancouver Canucks would end up getting Tyler Seguin out of that deal. It was sort of a 3-way deal there. But Chicago is sort of a dynasty, you could argue. 3 cups now in about 9 years. They won the 16-17 Stanley Cup. Point-wise, meanwhile, Alexander Ovechkin leads the league with 106 points for the Montreal Canadiens. Marchand right behind him with 104, so 2 Montreal Canadiens leading the league in points. Danny Heatley with 61 goals for the Florida Panthers. Alex Ovechkin for the Canadiens. Kaprizov for the Stars. For the Ducks. And Angelo Esposito for the Dallas Stars, all with 60 goals respectively. And in the draft, Detroit bafflingly drafting Brady Tkachuk first overall in a massive reach. Jersey gets the consensus first overall pick. Rasmus Dahlin at second overall. The Senators then begin to form the London Knights with 2 first-round picks there. New Jersey also has the last 9 picks in the first round. That is right. So in the 2018 draft, what they end up doing with those 9 picks is they actually had overall 13 picks. They had 15 picks, I believe, 14 picks in the third round. That doesn't sound right. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. No, they had 15 third-round picks. They picked Jacob Locchio, Olivier Rodrigue, Philip Howlander, Semyon Dargachintsev, Lassie Thompson, Zach Jones, Andre Lee. So actually they had 16 I believe. Nikita Okhotyov, Philip Seiderqvist, Matthias Laferriere, Kevin Ball, Jared McIsaac, Brett Leeson, Felix Anderson, Mark McLaughlin, and Sampo Ranta. Mark McLaughlin came to the NHL right away along with several of those other picks. He was NHL ready. He looked incredible that year and would become a gem for the Jersey Devils. That's at the draft. Now, for the 18-19 season, what happens is that the Florida Panthers have another 65-win season with Harry Rice leading the way. 65-10-7 record, 137 points. Montreal right behind them with a 59-16-7 record. They actually only just clinch a playoff spot. They don't get a conference title, a division title. They just straight up clinch with 59 wins, just clinch a playoff spot. Yeah, Nashville has 57 wins, 57-20-5 record to win the West. Vancouver's right behind them, 55-19-8 record, 118 points. They win one more game. They're actually they are the kings of the West. Jersey has an HRHSL 1.0, I believe, worst 13 wins. I've recapped that in a previous video talking about the Ducks and the Devils. Actually, that's going to be, I believe that's in tomorrow's video, I think. So yeah, sorry. That's actually recapped in tomorrow's video. Watch that. Yeah. But they finished with a 13-61-8 record with just 34 points. Yeah. Now in the playoffs, the Blackhawks looking to win their third straight Stanley Cup. They are massively upset. They are upset by the Dallas Stars in the first round in 5 games. They only win game 4, so they avoid a sweep, but they lose in 5. Pittsburgh chokes a 3-0 series lead, unfortunately, to the... I'm trying to find it, sorry. They choke a 3-0 series lead to the Washington Capitals, unfortunately. That is awful. You hate to see it. Toronto actually makes the playoffs and takes Philadelphia to the brink. They take them to 7 games. They just unfortunately lose. Also, interestingly enough, Philadelphia and Washington with a triple overtime game in the second round. You don't see those often. Philly would win 3-1. Or 2-1, sorry. They won 3-1 in overtime. No, they would end up winning that game 2-1 and would end up taking out the Flyers in 5 games. Yeah. And the Florida Panthers would end up winning their second Stanley Cup in the 1.0 era, their third overall, beating the Vancouver Canucks in 6 games. It was Harry versus Sporty for the second time in league's history. Technically the second time in 3 years for going back to HRHSL 2.0. Sporty gets depressed hard. He loses in 6, unfortunately. Danny Heatley with a Conn Smythe. He had 20 goals in the playoffs. He was absolutely on fire that year for the Florida Panthers. Yeah, Florida did not have to go through Montreal. Tampa had shocked them in 5 games despite having traded for Sidney Crosby. They were out in 5 games. They won game 1 and then were manhandled in the following 4 games. They scored 3 goals in the following 4 games. So Ben Bishop, by the way, with an incredible 35 game season, 35 wins, save shutout in game 2 to tie the series up. That was really the turning point. Leading the league in points, Joe Corvo, a defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens, leads the league with 124 points. Also would have 59 goals, good enough for second in the National Hockey League. Ovechkin and Marchand behind him with 117 and 106 points. So the top 3 point leaders belong to the Montreal Canadiens. They're out again in the first round, 5 games. Kirill Kaprizov would lead the National Hockey League in goals with 64. Ovechkin was third with 56. So, yeah, Montreal having 2 near 60 goal scorers, and they scored a grand total of 6 goals in 5 games. That is not good. Jack Hughes would be drafted first overall by the Carolina Hurricanes, who would actually relocate to Atlanta right afterwards. And the Florida Panthers, surprisingly, would end up trading for the 2nd and 3rd overall picks. What the trades were, what ended up happening. I'm trying to find these real quick, by the way. Again, I didn't think to actually load up these. I didn't think to load up the actual trades. I was just give them a mention. But no, I realized, yeah, I probably should mention these. So what the trade ends up being, oh my god, can I not actually find this right now? No way. Okay, so I believe that so actually what the trade ended up being was 2nd overall straight up for Artemi Panarin, which was actually seen as a bit of a bad trade. However, Artemi Panarin had a good year with the Wild. He ended up rebounding. And for 3rd overall, the Florida Panthers would actually end up giving up the 6th overall pick that they had gotten in a deal that sent San Francisco Roberto Luongo. We'll get to more on that in a minute. They trade 6th overall, the 28th overall pick they had gotten from the Nashville Predators, and a 2022 second round pick. With those picks, with 2nd overall, they draft Trevor Zegras, and with 3rd overall, they draft Cole Caulfield. The first time, by the way, in HRHSL history that the top 3 picks all belong to the USHL, the United States Hockey League. And San Francisco, who moved from Anaheim 2 years prior, by the way, they lead the league. I didn't mention. Oh, no, sorry, no. Wait, where am I then? Wait, no, okay, sorry, no, that they actually did not have that then for trading Roberto Luongo then yet, actually. I don't know how they got the Buffalo pick then, actually. Oh, sorry, okay, so what had happened, actually, sorry, my apologies. So they had actually traded for 6th overall. What had happened was they had given Buffalo the rights to Dylan Dubé and Valerie Nichushkin along with 13th overall, 50th overall, 2009 second, and a 2020 second from Tampa Bay, and then flipped 6th overall to Jersey for 3rd overall. That's what ended up happening. Sorry, the Luongo trade happens a little bit later in the timeline. We'll get to that again in just a brief minute. However, for the 1920 season, it would actually be cut deadly short, unfortunately. What happens is there's COVID-19, unfortunately. So San Francisco leads the way with a 34-11-6 record. Montreal, Vancouver, and Pittsburgh are right behind them. Montreal and Vancouver especially, 35-12-2. 35-15-2 and 34-14-3, 72 and 71 points each respectively. They're right behind. Pittsburgh, though, not too far behind either, 31-16-4 record, 66 points there. And due to the league only playing 50 games in the regular season before the lockout, basically a lockout, we have some play-in rounds. So Calgary, shockingly, beats Chicago in 5 games. In double overtime, they actually win in Game 5. It was actually 4-1 Chicago as well, so Chicago looked like they were cruising their way to the playoffs, and Calgary suddenly takes over, and they massively upset the Blackhawks there as well. The 12th seed Senators and the 5th seed Bruins. The 12th seed Senators would actually take out the Boston Bruins after winning Game 1 and 2. They lost Game 4 in heartbreaking fashion. They led 1-0. Shattenkirk scored with 45 seconds left. David Krejci scored with 20 seconds left. Troy Terry for the Sens, though, would tie it with 0.7 seconds left. You can't make this stuff up. And in overtime, the Bruins would win just 32 seconds in, unfortunately. So the Ottawa crowd going crazy for the Troy Terry goal. But they do win Game 5, though. They win it 4-2, so arguably a bigger choke for the Boston Bruins there. And again, the newly relocated Atlanta Thrashers get upset by the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs win it in 3. Alex Iafallo, win it in 5, actually. They win 3-2. Alex Iafallo would have all 4 goals on just 4 shots. All 4 goals to the Maple Leafs, so Iafallo coming up big time clutch there. He would have, I believe, 5 goals in the 5 play-in games, technically. And in the actual playoffs, Dallas would actually shock the world and the Vancouver Canucks as the 7th seed against the 2nd seed Vancouver by sweeping the Canucks entirely. The Canucks just scoring 7 goals in the 4 games. They actually scored 3 in both Game 1 and 2. They lost Game 2 in overtime. They lost 5-1 Game 3 and were shut out Game 4 1-0 in overtime. Sporty then becomes depressed and moves to Quebec after the playoffs. Quebec would then upset the Flyers in 7 games. Yeah, that makes sense. So he would move from Vancouver, where he spent a decade, and go to the Quebec Nordiques. All the best GMs are hanging out in the Eastern Conference, by the way. Harry Rice, Sons of Liberty, Pat, Big Mac, the technically Montreal, Lucas C, now Sporty. All the best GMs are in the Eastern Conference at this point, it seems. And yeah, Florida knocks out the Sons of Liberty. Harry Rice knocks out Suns in the Eastern Conference Finals. That is, I believe, the 5th time that they've played each other in the playoffs. Yeah, San Francisco making a surprise run after trading for Roberto Luongo at the what would end up being basically the trade deadline. They would end up acquiring Roberto Luongo with Brendan Montour, Juho Lamenko, Ryan Donato, a 2023 and a 2024 second in exchange for Hayden Fleury. What they give up is Hayden Fleury, Sam Steele, Victor Olofsson, Anthony Mantha, and a 2021 from the Buffalo Sabres. More on that in a minute. Hayden Fleury would end up getting shipped out. Victor Olofsson would get flipped for Andrei Kuzmenko. Mantha, I believe, would end up getting flipped by the Panthers as well for picks. Fleury and Mantha were both traded for picks. Sam Steele is the only guy that's actually still with the Panthers organization right now anyway, so yeah. But San Francisco, Luongo having a terrible season with the Panthers before the lockout. I believe he had a 3.38 goals against average. He's looking like he's going to retire. However, in the play-ins, the President's Trophy winning San Francisco Golden Seals, their biggest issue was goaltending. They needed goaltending. They also needed defense. They did get Brennan Montour to help secure the back end. They get Roberto Luongo. They sweep the Calgary Flames in the first round. They then go through Dallas in 6 games. They lead 2-0. Dallas wins game 3 and 4, but they take game 5 and 6, game 6 in double overtime. And in the Western Conference Finals, destroy the Winnipeg Jets in 4 games. And in the finals, if you know what I said a minute ago about Florida, it's San Francisco and Florida. Roberto Luongo taking on his old team, his former starting goalie, and Carey Price. It's Luongo and Price in the Cup Finals. It goes 7 games, and San Francisco surprisingly wins. San Francisco is the President's Trophy winning team. You could argue upset Florida. This is a team who won 70 games before. They have 2 60-win seasons, 2 cups. The San Francisco Golden Seals take them out. They win Game 4. They lose Game 2 and 3. They win Game 4. They lose Game 5. Destroy the Panthers in Game 6, 6-2, and win Game 7, 7-4. So, ironically, they score 7 goals in Game 7. The Panthers score 4 goals. They couldn't win the 4th game to win the Cup. So, very fitting that San Francisco wins the Stanley Cup. Former general manager Lucas, who had resigned the prior season, was heartbroken. He was proud of his boys, however, admitted that he probably would not have made the Roberto Luongo trade had he still been the GM. And you could argue that Luongo is the big reason they do win the Stanley Cup. The Florida Panthers and the handshake line, all of them that had spent even half a season with Luongo, gave him words of encouragement. Roberto Luongo, with his technically his 2nd Stanley Cup, his first as a starting goaltender, though. Roberto Luongo, a massive story in those playoffs. And yeah, so in the point standings now, Yuri Trubishev of the Philadelphia Flyers would lead the NHL with 85 points in just 51 games. So he was on pace for about 120 points. Patrick O'Sullivan, Danny Heatley, and Kirill Kaprizov for the Lightning, Panthers, and Golden Seals respectively, all with 36 goals to win the Rocket, co-win the Rocket. Nicholas Jensen has 72 points out of nowhere, and Joe Corvo leads all defensemen in points with 68 and I believe 54 games for the Montreal Canadiens. And winning the draft lottery, the Florida Panthers with the Buffalo Sabres pick, they win the draft lottery and get Owen Power first overall. So they trade off Roberto Luongo, basically a Stanley Cup. But who's to say they don't win more Stanley Cups, especially now with Owen Power? They have Trevor Zegras and Cole Caulfield that they drafted last year. They're looking good. Matty Beniers, though, going to Colorado, they're looking in fairly okay shape now. Rangers, as the worst team in the league, by the way. I did not mention the New York Rangers, the worst team in the league with a 15-31-3 record. The Minnesota Wild right behind them with a 16-29-5 record. The Rangers, the worst team in the NHL, and they did not have their first-round pick. It was stripped. It was redacted due to a prior engagement there. Jamie Drysdale, at technically 3rd overall, would go to the Minnesota Wild. And we're all caught up. An hour later, we are officially all caught up with the history of the HRHSL. With that being said now, how is the season likely to progress for 2021? It's likely to be played with a full 82-game season scheduled despite the COVID-19. The NHL and the NHLPA are apparently having discussions right now about it. They are talking about what's going to happen in the future for the HRHSL. There's no clue about it exactly right now. It could only be, as well, for the future of the league, there's only a limited amount of time for 1.0 to survive, with just about 4 or 5 seasons left before we are caught up to any NHL games that are coming out. 24 at this point, or maybe by the end of next year, 25 is out, and we're caught up to that. So if this is my last year with recapping the history of the HRHSL 1.0 league, I should say, if it's the last year I'm recapping 1.0 as a yearly thing, I want to say thank you to anybody that watched these videos and anybody that cared about the HRHSL to watch this video or to join the league. To the lifetime GMs, basically, of Lucas, Sporty, Sons, Lucas C, Legman. I'm trying to think of them. Owen Oakley, Hines for a time was a GM. I'm trying to think. I got to go to the GM list. I can't list all of them off enough. Brennan Odelsky, Mad Mike Sports. He's been in here for a long time. The Real BK. Pat, he's a newer GM, but he's already cemented himself as within the boys. Faggio, High Quality, Mr. Bandit, Jack Olson, of course, has to get a mention along with Boyer. Boyer absolutely has to get a mention there. Lucas, he already mentioned him. Sons of Liberty, Sporty, Big Mac has been around for a long time. To any, whether you're a long-time GM or you're a new beginning GM, again, thank you all so much for coming by to the HRHSL, or whether you're just watching this video and caring about this random sim league that I've created. Thank you so much for engaging with me, engaging with other people in this sim league. When I created it for the 07-08 season, I created it just because I liked sim leagues. I wanted to be different. I wanted a sim league where it was an EA run league, because I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen an EA sim league done the way I've done it. And I created it not anticipating, okay, we'll get like 10 GMs at first. Maybe if we're lucky by the 3rd, 4th season, we'll have enough GMs to grow into a full roster of sim leaguers. We had 30 GMs by the 2nd day, I'm pretty sure. If not the first week. We had 30 GMs just like that. I never expected the league to go on this long. We are now entering the 13th, 14th season of the league. There's so much history there. Seriously, it's insane to me that you guys cared so much about this league and have been so passionate about it, to the point where you guys have wanted me to come back to this league. 2.0 did not feel the same. You guys clamored for 1.0. And to that, I thank you guys so much. I thank you all so much. And whether we're in VCs doing sims or we're just shooting the shit in VCs, I want to thank you guys, because you guys feel like friends to me. It's almost a second family, the HRHSL, to me at least. You guys are a group of friends. You guys aren't just, GMs, I gotta go to work and focus on something. No, you guys are friends. We're all a big HRHSL Sim League family. And I want that. That's how I wanted the sim league to be. I didn't want it to be like other sim leagues where there was 50,000 rules. You had to go into separate channels and look at every single rule, and you had to follow them to the exact pinpoint. There was stupid shit like getting rewarded for reenacting real life trades with the exact same assets. I didn't want any of that stupid shit in my league. I wanted this to be a league where you can go in and you could do almost whatever you wanted. You could go in, trade for who you wanted, draft whoever you wanted, sign whoever you wanted, of course, with the only exception being, of course, the salary cap prohibiting you from absolutely anybody you wanted. But you know what I mean. I wanted this to be a league where you can go in, you can have fun. You don't need to be on 24/7 to absolutely care about every little thing going on in the league. This is not a league where every single player, every single GM has to send in their lines before a sim can be done. No. That is not what this league was about. This league was about being friendly with each other. It was about friendly competition. It was about having fun. That's what this is about. So again, I want to thank you guys for coming by and sticking with the league through the Milk and the Bull incident, through the first PS4 breaking down, any GMs who went over to 2.0. I appreciate that. Any GMs that have stuck by long term, any GMs that might have left and come back, thank you. Thank you all so much. Again, whether you're a long-time sim leaguer, you're a new sim leaguer with this league, you're joining, you're leaving, you were around for a short time, long time, and left, thank you so much for being a part of the HRHSL. It is something that I'm never going to forget. Again, if this is the last year, then I'm recapping it as a full-time HRHSL 1.0 guy. If we're fully caught up, if we end up going back to 2.0, going to a new 3.0, whatever the hell we end up doing, if we don't end up doing a sim league after 1.0 ends, no matter what happens, I want to thank you all so much for giving me this chance to be a sim leaguer and to have fun with some of the coolest motherfuckers that I could have imagined doing this with. Thank you all so much. with that being said, that is going to do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, favorite, share, and it includes, but it's not limited to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Turning Glass, my name is Rice. Subscribe to the Puff Club, HRHSL Club, Subadub, and the D Nation if you're a member of the Mod Squad. Thank you for running comments on these streams and the video videos. It's much greatly appreciated. Thank you all. Again, so much for watching. Link subscription on the Amazon business, Mailbox, PayPal, Discord, Letterboxd, the speedrun account, the Twitch, the stream, Letterboxd, speedrun apps, and the HRHSL 1.0 link are all down there as well. Thank you all again so much for watching. My name's Rice, and I am out. Love you guys. See you guys. Bye guys. Love you guys. See you guys. Bye guys. Love you guys. See you guys. Bye guys. Bye.